Before you hold a coin, you hold a story. And sometimes, that story isn't just about silver, metal, or age. Sometimes it's about mistakes, shortages, political tension, and a design that was never meant to become rare, but did. Today, we explore the 1906 Canadian 25-cent coin. A small silver quarter from the reign of King Edward VII. A coin that collectors still chase more than a century later. A piece that became famous for one of the most dramatic design differences in Canadian numismatics. And a coin that marks a turning point in the history of Canada's early currency. Let's dive into the world of the 1906 quarter, and uncover how a simple crown, just a little smaller than usual, created one of the country's greatest numismatic puzzles. To understand the 1906 quarter, you have to start with the world around it. Canada in 1906 was a young and rapidly changing country. Industry was growing, immigration was booming, and silver coinage was in constant demand. The country needs more quarters than ever before. They were used for daily trade, wages, groceries, and transportation. And at the top of the coinage system was King Edward VII. He had taken the throne only a few years earlier, and Canada's mint was still adapting to new designs and new tools. The Royal Mint in London was striking Canada's coins at this time. The Ottawa Mint was fully open until 1908. That meant any design modification, die replacement, or tooling update took coordination across the Atlantic Ocean. This distance, combined with heavy coinage demands, made errors and small variations not only possible, but almost inevitable. On the reverse of the coin, you see a beautiful wreath of 12 maple leaves, tied at the bottom with a ribbon. The denomination, 25 cents, sits at the center. Above it rests the crown, a symbol of royal authority. Below it, the word, Canada, and at the very bottom, the date, 1906. Everything looks straightforward. Classic. Balanced. But it's that crown, just that tiny detail, that would become one of the most important features of this coin. The obverse of the coin carries the portrait of King Edward VII. His image is traditional, wearing the imperial state crown and the formal royal robes. His portrait was designed by George William de Saulles, the Royal Mint's medalist, who unfortunately died in 1903, leaving other engravers to complete his work. The coin is 92.5% silver, known as sterling silver. It weighs just under 6 grams and has a diameter of about 24 millimeters. Small enough to slip into a pocket. Valuable enough to buy a meal at the time. Every coin tells a story, but some coins tell too. The 1906 quarter is one of those. Collectors know this coin for 2 reasons. First, because early Edwardian silver coins are popular and historically important. Second, because this year produced not one but 2 distinct varieties, one common, one extremely rare. The large crown. And the small crown. These aren't small details. They're major visual differences created by die changes, probably due to worn tools and replacement parts. And because the small crown dies were used briefly, very briefly, the number of surviving examples is tiny. We'll explore that mystery soon. But before that, let's look at the world of minting and the challenges that shaped this coin. Striking silver coins in 1906 wasn't as simple as it is today. Dies were made by hand. Hubs were fragile. Transporting master dies across the ocean took time and risk. And London was striking coins for many British colonies at once. Canada's silver quarters saw heavy circulation. That meant dies wore out fast. When a die wore down, the engravers replaced it, sometimes with one that wasn't fully matched to the original tooling. This is where the story of the crown begins. A replacement reverse die was engraved, but the small details didn't match the original. The crown was smaller. It sat lower. Its proportions changed. And that's how an accidental rarity was born. But how many were struck? Who noticed it first? And how rare is it in the world today? The large crown variety is what most collectors see when they hold a 1906 quarter. It was the primary design used throughout most of the mintage. The crown is tall and wide, with strong pearl details on the arches. It sits higher above the denomination and fills the top portion of the coin. This is the variety shown in your image. It's the expected design for the year. The large crown isn't rare, but examples in high grade, especially near mint state, can be valuable. This is because early Canadian silver saw enormous circulation wear. A crisp, bright, well-struck example can sell for several $100s or more depending on condition. But the small crown, that's where the legend begins. Collectors didn't notice the small crown immediately. For years, the difference was hidden in plain sight. But once the numismatic world discovered the variety, everything changed. The small crown appears lower and narrower. The arches are closer together. The entire crown looks almost compressed, as if squeezed from the sides. This design wasn't intentional. It was almost certainly the result of a temporary die replaced at the Royal Mint. Maybe a broken master hub. Maybe an emergency backup die. Maybe an engraver's subtle reshape. Whatever the reason, the die was used for only a short time. And that short window created one of the rarest silver quarter varieties in early Canadian history. Canadian coin catalogues place the small crown among the most desirable circulation strikes of the Edward VII era. Some examples have sold for thousands. A few high-grade pieces have reached 5 figures. But rarity alone doesn't tell the full story. The real fascination is how such a small detail, just a crown, completely changed the value of a common silver coin. The 1906 quarter belongs to a time when silver coins were real money, not symbolic, not plated, but genuine sterling silver. At 92.5% purity, these coins were worth their weight. Canada wouldn't reduce its silver fineness to 80% until 1910. That meant millions of these early coins were melted over the decades during the silver booms. Many 1906 quarters disappeared into refining pots in the 1970s, 1980s, and even recently. Every melted coin increases the rarity of surviving pieces. Especially varieties like the small crown. This quiet melting over generations is part of why collectors treasure early Canadian silver today. Although your image shows the reverse, the obverse is equally important. King Edward VII wasn't on Canada's coins for a time. He reigned from 1901 to 1910, and passed away before many of his redesigned coinage plans could be completed. His portrait on Canadian coins captures a unique moment. It reflects British royalty, Victorian influence, and early Canadian identity. The engraving shows him with a stern but composed expression, a beard trimmed neatly, and the crown resting firmly above the inscription. The Latin translates to Edward VII, by the grace of God, King and Emperor. Coins like this became symbols of empire, but also symbols of Canada's maturing independence. They were a reminder that Canada still relied on London, but was slowly stepping toward its own future. For collectors, this coin is both a challenge and a reward. The large crown is accessible. The small crown is elusive. And high-grade examples of either variety are hard to find because the coins have circulated heavily for decades. Collectors look for strong leaf detail on the wreath, sharp denticles along the border, clear ribbon lines at the bottom, minimal wear on the crown, full silver luster, little or no cleaning. Graded examples can range widely in price. But the true value is in history. The journey, the discovery, and the fact that a simple everyday quarter became a key chapter in Canadian numismatic research. Today, the 1906 Canada 25-cent coin stands as a reminder of how small details can create big stories. The large crown represents the standard design of its time. The small crown represents a mistake that became a treasure. Collectors don't chase this coin just because it's old or silver. They chase it because it captures a moment when Canada was still shaping its identity. When minting was imprecise. When a die engraver's tiny adjustment created one of the greatest rarities of the Edwardian era. More than a century later, the 1906 quarter continues to spark curiosity, inspire research, and add excitement to auctions and collections. And all because of a crown. Small, simple, and silently different. Coins like this remind us that history doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it hides in a small curve of silver, or a detail that most people never see. The 1906 Canadian quarter is more than money. It's a piece of a country growing up. A piece of a mint learning and adapting. A piece of a monarch's short reign. And a piece of metal that, by accident, became legendary. If you ever come across a 1906 quarter, take a moment. Look at the crown. Look at the leaves. Look at the silver. You might just be holding a story that survived fires, melting pots, pockets, and history itself. You've been watching Coin Legacy. If you enjoyed this journey through history, subscribe for more stories from the coins that changed the world.